Hello and welcome to the Monster Report Live, a show highlighting those entertaining creatures of film history. I'm your host, Nick Adam, and we've got a great show in store for you tonight. If you're in the chat, make sure you're commenting. And of course, I would ask you right now to like, subscribe, and all those things, but I want to give you a reason to. The reason you're going to like and subscribe to this channel, and of course, share it with your friends out there, is because we've got all kinds of kaiju news to talk about. We've got, in just a second, I'm going to bring in Everett Grondin from Godzilla Fan Freaks and Mac McClintock from Titanic Creations to talk about their brand new figures that they've got coming out from Titanic Creations. You saw not too long ago the Gorgo release that they had, the smaller articulated version, and we're going to talk a little about the larger version. And I've had a review on that. Everett's had a review on Godzilla Fan Freaks for that. And so we're excited to bring these guys in. So before I get to the guests and my co-host today, Bobby Reynolds is in the chat. Thank you, Bobby, for being here. And Adam, Thirsty Thursday Toys. That will be awesome to see everything Titanic Creations he has done, and he has done some awesome stuff mixing in the drinks with the collectible figures. So definitely check out Thirsty Thursday Toys on all that he has to offer on his channel. Like and subscribe everything that he's got. Great kaiju content creator, Fred Hollis. Can't wait for the next Godzilla movies, plural, exactly. All right, so all that's out of the way. Again, like and subscribe, all those things. And let's bring in first my co-host, Mr. Everett Grondin, Godzilla Fan Freaks. Good to have you.
Great to be here, Nick. Thanks for having me.
All right. And our guest of the hour, Mac from Titanic Creations. How you doing, Mac?
Good. How's everybody doing?
Excellent.
Yes.
And Gorgo looks like he's doing well, too.
Yeah, big old Gorgo now.
That is the big one.
Inside.
Oh, yeah. We will bring up Gorgo for interview in just a second here. We've got Dope Pope in the chat. Dope, good to have you here. Would have loved to talk to you, but I understand schedules didn't work out, but that's fine. Maybe next time we get Mac on, we'll get Dope on here. So many cool things that Titanic Creations has already released, and you're hitting home runs just out of the park. And we're just so excited about the news that recently that you have the Yongary and Pulgasari, North and South Korea Kaiju, that is going to be part of your lineup of figures you're releasing. So, Mac, tell us a little about, I guess, what went into getting the rights for these two kaiju out of North and South Korea.
Yeah, so I think just speaking on Yongary first, which is the one that's coming first, though. So in April, you'll be able to pre-order, same way we did with Gorgo. But so just kind of speaking on how the rights happened is this fan, I believe, I don't want to get his name wrong. It was ET Entertainment on Twitter. ET13 Productions on Twitter. He reaches out. He says, hey, I have all these friends over in Korea who are huge kaiju fans, and they had previously made a little set of toys based upon Korean kaiju, right? So then he sends me their contact information, and they are close and in that realm of people, and they know, have the connections over there. And then eventually they end up sending me over to the Korean Film Authority or something like that is what it's called, right? And they actually end up, so the way these films are working over there apparently is they submit to this Korean Film Authority, then the Korean Film Authority is like a broker for the rights holders. So we work directly with the Korean Film Authority, and then they just kind of are a middleman, and then we end up just finishing a contract, getting it all done. And that's how we're going to be able to make a really cool Yongary figure that we think is going to really stand out in the collection, as it's such a oddly unique kaiju that has a very interesting death scene. As I'm not sure many people are, I don't know how many people have watched the end of Yongary with the itchy powder, and then maybe some other things that aren't very PG-13 happen at the very end, but right. But a really fun kaiju, and it gives itself a great opportunity to introduce new ways, a new branch of that kind of non-Toho, non-Japanese kaiju, because a lot of what happened in the 60s is, right, Godzilla was huge, and it's kind of exploring what these other cultures wanted to do with different monsters, right? Gorgo, the very British version of Godzilla, and Yongary is very much the South Korean Godzilla in its own right.
Yeah. And so, we'll talk some Pulgasari here in a second, and then I'm going to actually, before we even get into that, I want to toss it over to Mr. Fan Freaks for the next question. But first, we've got Dino Mundo. Good to have you in the chat. And so, anyone else who's in the chat, you got a question for Mac or even myself or Everett here, feel free to put it in the chat. You do not need to super chat to have your questions read on the air. But if you do, I'd certainly appreciate that. So I'll get Bobby and your questions in a second, but take it away.
I am just, fascinated by just the whole thing, like, especially Yongary, because I don't think there's ever been a Yongary figure outside of the reptilian CGI version that came out. I don't think there's ever been anything of the Showa Yongary, so I'm really excited for that personally, because if you know me and my collection, I just love having a representation, even if it's just one of every different kaiju from the Godzilla universe, from other universes. You gave me my very first Gorgo figure, so it's like that was perfect. So I am just totally hyped for Yongary. I watched both movies today in prep for the stream, for tonight, and that just got me more excited. Like, and I want to say my questions are almost leaning more towards like the extras for Pulgasari, because I think that's going to be kind of hard versus Yongary, where you could have several different extras, kind of like the way you did with Gorgo. And I know you already pitched that idea, on social media and everything, like what would be good additions for Yongary. And I think everybody that commented and the ones that you already had listed were golden.
Right, that's great to hear. I mean, because I think so much of what we learned through Gorgo is being able to, like, give what is a complete collection to someone, so that you can put it on the shelf and you feel like you've taken it from the movie scene and put it on the shelf. And while it's not perfect with Gorgo, I think we definitely took the right steps towards getting it done.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Dope was commenting there. Was oil tanks, I'm guessing, was one of them?
Yeah, I think we definitely need the oil tanks, right? Because Yongary is all about
drinking oil and gasoline.
Maybe
what a monster. Sounds like just a pickup truck, right? Just
pretty much.
You need to have a straw coming out of one of them. G-Man of War 54, good to have you here. And have a comment from Dino Mundo. I don't know if anyone knows Dino Mundo. He says he or she is making a 3D animation of Yongary versus Pulgasari. A teaser coming soon, a 3D fan-made animation. Dino, get in touch with me. We'll definitely share it, and maybe we'll see if we can't have you on for a little bit on that. That would be very cool to see. Bobby Reynolds does have a question for you. Hey, Mr. Creations, would one day you do a War of the Monsters figure like my boy Togura?
So this is a license that I don't know how many people are familiar with War of the Monsters. It's a PlayStation 2 video game that came out in about 2003, 2004, and it's like War of the Worlds, but with aliens and like all of them. It's kind of like a very 1950s playthrough, like levels. But like Togura is like the Godzilla stand-in in the universe. And there's some other really great ones. There's obviously a monkey and a robot, and then there's this one that's like all electricity. It's a very fun game. They remastered it on PlayStation 4. I don't know if you guys ever played it, but it's pretty great.
I have it. I love it. I revisit it every now and then.
Oh, this is one that you're going to have to educate me on. Wow. But the license for that, I mean, who knows? I guess it's probably something in the gaming industry.
My assumption is that Sony owns it, as it was a PlayStation exclusive. And I think the studio went out of business eventually, is my understanding. And then when it got remastered, I think Sony just has the general rights to it.
Yeah.
And I guess when it comes to the rights to all of these, it does come down to connections, doesn't it? It's like, you know, a guy who knows a guy. In the case, I remember your story on Gorgo, and it's really just starting with who produced the Blu-ray of it and reaching out to them. And it was like, you know, who did you license it from? It's like, oh, we actually have the license here. Like I could grab it, I can hold it in my hands. And so it was, you made that connection, and there it was right in front of you. And then, you know, this one through the connection that you had through social media for Yongary. Pulgasari, that should be an interesting story. How much you're willing to disclose, and we're getting invaded by Pulgasari as we speak. And oh my goodness, look at that thing. I mean, whoa.
So really the general thing with Pulgasari is I haven't like confirmed we're going to do it, just because I'm working through a few things, but there's like a real vagary of if the United States even accepts North Korean copyright laws, or even if North Korean copyright laws even apply to anything before 1999, because North Korea didn't have copyright until 1999. There was no copyright law in North Korea. So who actually owns it is, or even if there is anyone who owns it, is really bizarre. And then when you also look at like when Mondo did it, right? Mondo didn't get the rights to make it. They changed the letters. If you look at the box, there's an extra U in there.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of this is, it's all gamesmanship to a certain degree. And I don't think anyone really wants to be writing a check to a dictatorial state. It's just kind of a base level, you know, morals thing. But I think the interesting part about it is it's such a bizarre creature in the kaiju mythos. And then when we started realizing we were going to do Yongary, right, we're like, well, you know what would go really great with it is if we could make one of the North Korean one, and then people could like have their little North versus South.
Yeah.
You could draw the 38th parallel right on your shelf. You know,
right.
See where they're standing. But I think really it just like, if it's a lot dependent on that Yongary is successful and people like that one, because really doing it by itself, I don't think Pulgasari is really the drawing force of how Yongary or Gorgo is, just because it's incredibly hard to even watch the film, let alone like we're talking, you have to be like on the iceberg shelf. We're talking at the bottom for a lot of these guys. And I think it's a great way for us to be able to release 2 new figures this year without having to, you know, really push the envelope in a big way.
And as far as I was going to say, as far as the figures go, you'd mentioned, you know, that the Mondo had created one, and so the sculpt that was done for that also dope, right? Dope Pope. But he cannot use that exact same sculpt, which we wouldn't want him to. We want to make, you know, something new when it's under the Creations, you know, brand. And so, you know, seeing something new like that, and then after I ask this, I'll send it back to Everett here. But yeah, tell me a little about, you know, your plans for what the articulation would be, the figure color, the kind of idea behind that, and then I'll show the picture of what you had posted.
So for like Pulgasari, I'll speak with that one first. Like, since Dope Pope's already done one of these, we were very much discussing the idea of doing a more stylized version that would be very close to the film, but also like, you know, maybe punched up a little bit, you know, really flesh out some details of the monster, just because, I mean, how much work was the director really doing while he was kidnapped of wanting to make this look exactly perfect, which, you know, and I'd say we want to like drastically change the design, but, you know, just put a more Titanic creation spin on it. Maybe throw some spikes on there, just because we throw spikes on all of our monsters for some reason. And then, so yeah, so I mean, like this
is something I found. Yeah, this is not it,
Right.
but yeah,
right. But this is Dope's original sculpt they did for Mondo, and as you can see, it's pretty accurate to what you see in the film. And I think one thing we will probably do is when you watch the movie, it's like the Mondo one is green, the big one, the 30 centimeter one. And I think if we do the articulated one, it'd be more in this color scheme, which I think is more representative of what you see in the film. And then also there's the part where we could also do a die cast item, since technically Pulgasari is completely metal, as he's an iron bull.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I also don't want to commit to that because I don't even know if we could do that. But
Imagine
Heavy.
what shipping on that would be. Man, talk about a heavy shipment right there.
just right, you just ship the iron bull, and it's literally iron.
it's a kit. See, you're gonna have to put it together yourself. It's just a big thing of iron.
Right, it's a subscription model. You get one piece of iron every day, and you have to mold it.
or ingest it. I mean, something.
Right, you have to. There's smalting. There's a lot of stuff. But and then kind of speaking on articulation, right? We want to follow a similar pattern to Gorgo. I think there's a few joints we want to probably do differently, and then each monster is also different in how you're going to do it, because these aren't, GI Joes where you can do the same exact articulation and they're all dudes. They're, a person has so many joints, but like a Pulgasari, right? We're not going to be able to put as many joints in his tail as we could in Gorgo, right? Because it's a little stubby, right? So he's probably more traditional action figure, right? But then with Yongary, he's gonna be closer to Gorgo, right? I think we're gonna do a few things differently. Like his hand joints aren't gonna be as big, just because Gorgo's hands are gigantic. So then we're gonna be able to scrunch those down a little bit. And then I know a few people had issues with the pegs on Gorgo's feet, so I think we're gonna change that a little bit. Just really refine some stuff, but still kind of keep that, harder kind of injection molded plastic that we have that keeps it solid, so you're not feeling like it's going to break every time you touch it still. And then of course the biggest thing on Yongary that I think we do want to keep is that he's going to have his nozzle in the mouth, which I don't know if you've seen the movie, right, you can see that there is a fire nozzle in his mouth.
Yeah.
So
they didn't do a good job covering that up as many other kaiju as we know, because when he's spraying his fire breath, you can totally see the metal pipe that is used to fire the flame. But I love that that's going to be in there, because that's the charm of Yongary. That was one of the things I love about it.
Right. It makes it so human to a certain degree, right? And also it's a great way where we can put in like an accessory. You can just stick it in too as well. So it's a dual function.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Everett, what else you got as far as questions?
Again, I know that, Pulgasari you can't commit to and whatnot yet, because you want to see how it's going to go with Yongary. But, man, it's like even rewatching the film today, like I'm trying to think of what even extras for Pulgasari would be. That's the tough one, because I can imagine you'd probably do kind of like what you did with Gorgo. You have the main monster, and then you kind of have where Pulgasari maybe starts out and as it's like the mini like doll version. But it's like outside of that, I can maybe only see like the temples and stuff like that, because Pulgasari doesn't take place in modern times. It takes place in like, the old school samurai eras and stuff like that. So it's like there's almost not much you can do as far as extras, unless you want to throw some like temples in there and buildings or stuff like that.
Yeah, I think really I think if we do Pulgasari, there's going to be some creative liberties that are taken to really flesh out the figure to make it something that's interesting. Like one thing we've been trying to figure out for the past 3 years is how can you build like a modular set on someone's shelf. And what I mean by this is you have buildings that are like pieces, so you can build them up as tall as you want. They can be destroyed and everything, and it's kind of like this interchangeable thing, like kind of what we did with Big Ben, where it's being popped the top off. But the goal with these would be they look normal, right? And then you can buy more, and you have like a road piece and everything, so that it looks fleshed out, so that you could, in theory, you could build a whole city on your desk, right, and have a diorama that way. And it's hard to find a lot of these things in 6-inch scale, just because like people will recommend like in-scale train sets, but they're technically not the right scale, because you're talking more like 1/300th scale is about what a kaiju toy should be. But the issue with this all is that you want it to be something where someone can like build it out entirely, but you also want it to be small enough that someone could have like a building and feel like it's serving the purpose of enhancing the display on their shelves. So I think there's a chance when we do Pulgasari, we'll start really pushing that as like an add-on, where it's like it's not necessarily tied to the film, but it'd be the beginning of a fully modular set where as you buy more Titanic Creations figures, you can build out your city shelf.
That'd be awesome. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, it's like I was collecting the McFarlane Toys Dune collection, and they would actually have a piece of the Beast Raban, which is another character in Dune, that when you collect that first wave, basically, for the first film, you put him together, and that was a way to get you to, of course, purchase the entire wave. Thirsty Thursday Toys, Adam is loving every minute of this. Good to have you, Bragus official, I guess. So... And then Bobby Reynolds, have you guys heard of Mars Dinosaur Forces Robot Toys? The one I got from it is the Mechagodzilla, like horse miniguns on his arms. I don't know about the Mars Dinosaur Forces. That's a new one on me.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I have not heard of this either.
Bobby, send us a picture. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Bobby Reynolds is known for very, very obscure movies, figures. Like anytime he pops in on my Kaiju Chill O'Clock streams, he'll throw out, "Have I seen this movie or this movie?" And I'm like, I never even knew that existed. And that sounds like a wild movie. So
yeah, send us a link to something. Let's see. I saw those at Ross a lot. Okay, the old store Ross. Okay, and
I know. I googled it. I know. I actually had one of these little guys. They're like I'm trying to describe it. It's like a big red dinosaur with like spikes coming out the side. It's yeah. I remember these now. They're from like the early 2010s. I want to say maybe. I don't know. I think I had one when I was younger. I can't be positive, but I remember seeing one of these before.
Yeah, the sky's the limit, and as to what can be developed out there. But tell me about the development process. You mentioned 6-inch scale is where you're heading, and I know that your packaging from everything from Gorgo, Titanicus, all of your original kaiju that you've created, the packaging. The box that it comes in is definitely a work of art. It's a very unique packaging, and that is why when I displayed Gorgo, of course, I kept the box as part of the display. Of course, you had that beautiful artwork by Matt Frank. Is there something about the packaging also that you're continuing on with the legacy of Titanic Creations and artists that you've already got to work on?
So the basic plan right now is that Matt Frank will be doing the standard box, and then we're also in discussions with having Art Adams do a special edition version of Yongary. That would be a separate release. That it would be the similar toy, but a special color variant with an Art Adams box. And if you don't know who Art Adams is, he did the IDW, the Dark Horse Godzilla comics in the 90s.
Yes.
The one with the blood coming down. Really amazing artist who does just amazing artwork, and we dope it was able to talk to him a little bit at New York Comic Con, and it sounds like he'll definitely be interested in doing a box for us in the future.
Very cool.
Excellent. Yeah, because you definitely had a home run with all of those. I remember seeing your boxes laid out there at Tucson Tucson Kaiju Festival. I'm looking at the founder right here, and I just can't even spill the name out. It's there. And it really made for just an eye-catching way of selling the figures. It definitely got everyone's attention because I do believe you ended up not having to take any of your inventory home that day, which is awesome. And
that was great.
Maybe minimally.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I mean, the show in Tucson went great, and it's really. I mean, when we get with people who like kaiju stuff, it's really where we thrive, right? And we're very much a niche of a niche, is the way I like to look at our business in general.
Yeah, excellent. Anything, Everett, you want to talk about with Mac or myself about the films that really stand out to you? That if somebody hasn't watched them, what are they in for? You know, those are the kinds of things that you want to point out. You want it's fresh. I know that.
Yes. So, I mean, with Pulgasari, if you know all the history about the film and everything like that, that makes it such more of an interesting watch. Even learning how some people at Toho were even involved with it, and it makes it a very interesting watch. And I actually believe I read somewhere there's a decent quality version of it free with ads on YouTube, I think. I have a physical copy on DVD, and I mean, the quality is as best as you can get. I mean, it's watchable, but man, does it definitely show that, you know, but I feel like that adds to the entertainment factor of it. That's what makes it really fun. And again, just knowing all the history of it. And then Yongary, again, you don't really hear him talked about all that much at all. Like, you know, not mentioned. Again, there's, to my knowledge, no figures of the Showa version. All you have is the 90s terrible CGI remake, or, you know, Reptilian, whatever you want to call it. It was Yongary, and then they rebranded it Reptilian here in the States or whatever for the Sci-Fi Channel, however that worked. And I remember watching that with my dad. It looks like Nick just has a headache from thinking about that movie.
I have trouble getting through it. It's so bad.
It's bad. It's bad. But no, I mean, I feel like if you haven't seen either of the films, they're worth a watch. Like, they're entertaining, you know, especially if you really love Showa stuff. For Yongary, which again, I'm a Showa factor guy. I love all the practical effects, and even Pulgasari to a certain extent, which when you watch Pulgasari, you wouldn't even think that movie, again, due to the quality, was made in the 80s. It looks way older than the 80s.
This is after Godzilla 1984-85. I mean, yeah. And there's the same actor, same suit actor in the Godzilla playing Pulgasari. And I'm just like, yeah, we went back in time a little bit, didn't we? But literally they were going back in time. And in as far as the budgets for films go in North Korea, yeah, that's the best they could do. But in the late, great Kenpachiro Satsuma, let's just acknowledge the great work that he did, both as Godzilla, Gigan, Hedra, and Pulgasari. And and he actually mentions that is one of the most beloved characters that he has played. Even yet, when you look at the suits, you're like, boy, he's been in such better suits. You know, Gigan alone, way back, is a better design suit than the suit for Pulgasari, but yet I think there was something about the human element of Pulgasari starting off, you know, the little man, of course, that played him in the little suit, and then being human sized and interacting even with the soldiers of that feudal North Korea, like it was, and then of course becoming the giant monster that he was. There was definitely a human element of there. We have Man of War 54 with a suggestion, scene of Pulgasari where he eats the flaming ball from the catapult. That is an awesome shot. Shoots it back out. Okay, sure. I guess that could be your add-on, something like that. If he's got his mouth
got a little flame ball.
Yeah,
right out of the mouth. I guess there is something to be thought of. Maybe you've already considered it. Is the open mouth, closed mouth, articulated jaw, or interchangeable heads?
Yeah, I think the goal always, if we can, is to have the jaw be able to open and close by itself. I mean, I know Super 7 doesn't believe in the articulated jaw, which is their prerogative. I just feel like it's the right thing to do for most figures, right?
Yeah.
Like, especially because obviously I get how it could break the sculpt, right? And I get the thought process behind of having the interchangeable heads. I mean, my Gorgo, I have been very nervous to ever take the head off and put on the glow in the dark eyes. So I really don't. I try not to force anyone to do that. I mean, the glow in the dark eyes, it was just kind of a necessity that had to happen,
right?
Due to when things happened. But really, I think we'd want the mouse to be articulated. Really, one thing I did love that we did with Gorgo is his feet having the extra point of articulation. It could have been a little bit tighter, but that was a big one. That it just adds another interesting way to pose the figure, especially if you're able to get them on their toes. And the other issue with a lot of these is that the suits themselves could not move as much as these action figures move because that they couldn't bend over. They had no real ab crunch, right? I mean, I remember one person. I mean, it was a few people wanted Gorgo's hands to have a closed fist one, and I'm like, he can't close his fist. The fists don't close in the movie, right? So I was like, which is one of the reasons we didn't have that. But I think for for Yongary, we are going to try to do an alternate hands that are closed because he has the one scene where he picks up the little kid, not the kid, the one person, and then throws them. So,
that
these are like the little.
It's brutal. I was the first time I ever watched Yongary, him just picking up that person and just literally using a word from this generation, yeeting him down back to the ground. It's just, oh my goodness.
There is so much humor in that movie. Well, Pulgasari too has a lot of good, little bits of humor that it's like, yeah, I don't really need to take this terribly seriously. It's not Godzilla 54 or Shin Godzilla, or it's not -1. It's very much of its time period where we can be a little bit more relaxed and understand that the danger is, well, I mean, gosh, there's a little kid dancing with Yongary. I mean, it's like, goodness gracious. I mean, how serious am I supposed to really take this? Okay, there you go. The Yongary with the ability to dance. He's got wheels on the bottom and he's just spinning around.
Or if you end up doing the larger scale like you did with Gorgo, do the larger scale Yongary in like the dance pose.
Just like
unbelievable. This is one of those things when you're watching Yongary and someone walks into the room at that scene, and then you feel like you got to explain what's going on, but you really don't have any words. It's just like it is what it is, guys. There's no explanation. Bobby, have you ever heard of Super Fighter or the Turbo Fighter robot toy? This is another one of them that I'm not familiar with. When you turn it on, said, "I am Super Fighter, engage." I hope I did the voice right because I don't know. Bobby, I saw you sent me some links before, so any kind of pictures that you want to send me of that. There's a lot of those obscure things like that I'm a fan of too. Dope. Beyond excited to have Showa Yongary be an actual collectible, one of his favorites. Dope, good to have you. And Dope, if you have any other comments that you'd like to talk about in the design and what goes into the design, just let us know. We're just envious of the inside work that goes into what he does to bring these to life. I mean, it is incredible, and you've got a tremendous asset in Dope Pope to put together what you've done, and Gorgo's a testament to that. Speaking of Gorgo, Tell us a little update on the large Gorgo figure, because I'm excited to get mine.
Yep. So this is him. This is the production sample. So you can kind of see you get a lot more paint detail at this scale than you do at the 6-inch scale. We're able to fade the toes in, really make them stand out, and then same thing with the nails. And his teeth also are too shaded so that they can really pop out. I don't know if my lighting isn't the best for this, right? But this guy is really probably my favorite thing we've ever made, just because it's the quality. It's going to feel just like an X Plus that's going to show up, right? Your detailing on the thing is just able to pop out way more than at the smaller scale. This is as close as you'll get to having what a studio mannequin of Gorgo would look like for them. So if you've ever wanted to feel like you have the exact monster from the film, this is as close as we'll ever get to that. And I think Dope Hope has done such a great job of bringing to life what that monster is supposed to look like, right? And there's so many different levels to this that you see when you have the figure in person, just how the neck rolls go into it. And Gorgo, while being a simpler design, is also very intricate in the anomalies of things. Just look at his back spikes, you can see how deep it goes, and the extra shading we're able to get into at this scale. Really,
I was gonna say that looks beautiful. I have yet to order one yet. The budget just has not been there for me, but I want to get one. That just looks amazing.
And I mean, the reason we ended up pricing this guy a little bit higher is we ended up spending more trying to.
That's really fair. Yeah.
This to be, especially because we're only making 500 of these guys, right? And one of the biggest ways we've been able to help people be able to pay for these is we offer payment plans, which is $45 up front, which is your first payment and the shipping cost. And then it's 4 payments of $35 once per month. And we're going to be updating that. So it's going to be a little bit more frequent so that you will have it paid off when they arrive. So that you're not waiting a month for $35 to come through. So your toy gets shipped out. But yeah, these should be shipping early April to end of April. It just kind of depends on how quickly things get done on the production side. And along with that, I know a lot of people ended up missing out on their Gorgo, the 6-inch one. And shipping with these but they'll be arriving to us the same time is the comic book version of Gorgo, which is going to look very similar to the original. It's going to be the same sculpt and the same articulation, but will be a lighter green, kind of more in that Ditko style. And then hopefully it'll be working great with the release of the Gorgo comic book, which we hope will be up for order in April as well.
Awesome.
And I was going to say, Everett, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk a little of Gorgo, and then if you wanted to go back to either Yongary, Pulgasari, or whatever. I just was going to ask Mac about when he arrives. Is he one piece ready to go out of the packaging?
Yep. So, if you want to look at the tail here, there is no seam line at all. This is just one solid piece. So he's another very large box that you'll be getting. And the box art, hopefully, we'll be able to show a completed box here. But the artist, his name escapes me at the top of my head. But he did the box art is this very vibrant, very 60s looking box art that is just fantastic, and will be another thing that no one wants to ever get rid of.
And if you do come up with it and think of it, just let us know. I'll let Everett take it, and then I'll get some of the chats caught up here.
There's Dope Hope. Nick Chev is who did.
Nick Chev, yes. That's right.
Very cool. Very cool. That's awesome. I don't even know if I have any further questions. I mean, it's just awesome what you guys have been able to do and bring to the table. Again, I love that all these obscure kaiju are getting some love from, through Titanic Creations and Dope Hope and everyone else. It's amazing. And, hopefully we can continue to get that, as long as these things continue to do well. I saw the poll in the Titanic Creations, fan group or whatever, that people were just adding, all the different obscure kaiju that they like to see. They'd like to see the Redosaurus from Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. I even saw the giant claw in there, which I'm no shame to put a vote down that I would love a giant claw. Why not?
Everyone wants the giant claw.
But it's just awesome. But it's just awesome that you guys have been able to do this, and hopefully, continue to do this. And anybody that's watching, and anybody that maybe watches this stream in the future that you didn't catch it live, support Titanic Creations. Support, continue to support them. What you do, pre-order, use the payment plans, all that stuff. It all just helps. Buy the original kaiju. I still love my Titanicus figure that I picked up from you at the Tucson Kaiju Festival back in November. That's still one of my favorites, like, of an original kaiju idea from figures that I own. It's just, you guys have just done a fantastic job. I have nothing but praise for you, Mac, and Titanic Creations, Dope Pope, everybody that's just behind everything. And I'm just happy to know you guys, and just be in the loop that way. You guys are just awesome.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you saying that. And I think really what has been the most exciting part about all this is, like what we did with Gorgo last year, seeing how impactful having a figure of a monster can be to the general awareness of that film. And I think a lot of people were able to go back and revisit Gorgo, and it was very serendipitous that the 4K release came out at the same time, and then also they reprinted the original comic books. It worked out really well that all this kind of came together. I think it really made people appreciate a film that wasn't thought of as much as it probably should have been in recent years.
Yeah.
And I was going to say that, yeah, you're right. It's almost as if maybe the algorithm was just in your favor, or maybe you set the new hashtag, essentially trending term out there by starting with that. And then it just kind of went from there, because you even had Matt Frank do the artwork for that Vinegar Syndrome release that was out there. And then, yeah, like you said, the comic, and then it just became kind of a just out of the blue sort of trending topic. And you sold out of that original Gorgo supply. And tell me, if somebody was interested, if they don't already know, if there's a possibility of getting their own small articulated Gorgo.
So yeah, as I think I mentioned earlier, the comic book version is the same sculpt. It's going to scale, right? It's not going to look super comic booky. It's still going to, look realistic. It's just going to be a lighter green. It's not going to be, this dark green that you see in the film. But that's going to be on the site in March. I don't have a firm date yet, just because I want to have a painted sample to be able to put pictures on. And so those are going to be $60 $60 plus shipping. But it's a really great deal if you missed out on the first one. The first one was $100 plus shipping. So this is a $40 price reduction. You don't get all the accessories, but you get the main figure. You'll get a new box, and it's a great way, if you missed out on the original one, to get into it. And these will be limited to 500. Just so even if you are one of those people who wants to have every single one of them, it still will have a special place in your collection and will be unique as well.
That's fantastic.
And because we have people kind of coming in and out of the stream, I wanted to make sure everyone got the chance to hear that. And then, you probably look ahead at that G-Man of War 54 question. I'll have you address that in a second. But Tim Bartos is in the chat. Hello, everyone. Loving the show. Excited about the new releases, especially excited for the Yongary movies I saw multiple times as a child in the 70s. Don't worry about showing your age here, especially amongst the gray that I've got here. So, but yes, being able to say you were there when Yongary was new. So that is very cool and good to have you here, Tim. And G-Man of War. So I'll let you, Mac, kind of address this with the Reptilicus giant claw again. Keep asking about it. So I assume, maybe these licenses are out there available or not.
So the giant claw is with Sony. Sony is not. I mean, it's doable. It's more just us. So basically we need to be able to sell a lot of toys this year so that we have cash on hand to give them the money they want up front. That's just kind of that's just the simple truth of the matter, right? This is why I always try to evangelize about how it's important for us to sell everything that we can, because then usually most of that funds doesn't go to, me going to Hawaii for a summer. It goes towards buying more licenses so that we can continue to do this. And, it's just kind of building up and up and up always. But the giant claw is one that I really want to do, just because it would be a massive figure, because in my head, it's going to be, it'd be 8 inches tall. It'd be 20 inches wide, because it's got to be a flying battleship, right? A giant flying battleship. And so it'd be a great piece to have. And also, I learned about the giant claw from an angry video game nerd episode back when he was doing Monster Madness. So that's always been a light spot in my heart. And then the problem with Reptilicus was the son of the director of the film, Sidney Pink, his son, who's like 80 now, was very, very difficult to work with. And Reptilicus is one that I want to do, but it's also hard to justify. Right? First of all, the money up front that he wanted, then the amount he wanted per sale, which is, his prerogative. It's 100% his prerogative, and that is his right as the IP holder of it to do that. But to a certain degree, I also like working with people who I can actually work with, and I don't feel like I'm having to pull teeth to get an answer from, and then feeling like they don't care as much as I do about something that they own. And then the other issue with Reptilicus is that there is a thing called Reptirosaur, which is the comic book version of Reptilicus, which is public domain. So it makes it very hard for us to think that it's necessary to pay for a name, when technically we could make something very similar and very much like it looks like in the film. And it would be called Reptirosaur. And I would assume a few people would have the wherewithal to make the logical jump of what we were trying to sell. Obviously, it would not be Reptilicus. It would be something different, another Danish monster with wings that spits slime out of its mouth, but not Reptilicus, completely different. But I think that is something we really want to do, and it would be great if the Gorgo that looks like a comic book sells out. Then we could do Reptirosaur, we could do a Conga figure, and kind of have this whole Ditko Monsters line completed, which I think would at least scratch the Reptilicus feeling to a certain degree.
That would be awesome if you're able to do that. And I don't think you're right. You're right. It's it might not be too much of a leap for the kaiju fans, the giant monster fans out there, to make that connection. Also, on top of that, I think of this is all you have to make a business decision. You can't just give this away. But at the same time, I think people need to understand that the overhead on Titanic Creations is Mac. Mac is not lining his pocket. He's hiring out. You are hiring out your artists, your sculpting, the design, and your artists out. And it's just you. It's not like you have a whole staff of office workers to do the paperwork and billing and all that. You're doing this, and so it is a labor of love for you.
Yeah, and I think another thing that's really important to talk about is we do really try our best to make sure the people who make these figures are really well compensated for their efforts, right? And I'm not saying oh, poor me, whatever. I'm fine, right? But our goal is always to make sure that the people who are actually doing the work are the ones who are seeing the rewards from this. And know when you buy something from Titanic Creations, it's not we're trying to line someone's pockets or anything. Our goal is always to be about the monsters and also help the people who are really incredibly talented and doing stuff that is far beyond my scope of talent or anything. And between Matt Frank and Dope Pope and even our factory, who does the work of making sure these things aren't bad and there's a high quality of them, it's very important that those people are compensated and taken care of. And I really think we try our best to keep our prices as low as possible to be able to do that.
Yeah, fantastic. We've got Jonathan, who's elected in the house. Jonathan, good to have you. Check out Titanic Creations and all that they have to offer. Andrew DeFilippo, Andrew's in the house. So, but Andrew, are you excited for the new Godzilla books? They're coming out to celebrate the 70th anniversary. Of course, absolutely. And there's Thursday toys. Yeah, the idea of Reptilicus and Giant Claw, it's not outside of, I guess, the possibility. So yeah, just stay tuned. And I was going to also mention, about Gorgo. My son got the plush when we were at the Tucson Kaiju Festival. Do you still have some of the plushes of Gorgo out there?
I believe we currently have 15 of them left. So, if you want to get one of those, please do so soon.
Reach out.
I don't think we're going to reorder those ones. So those will be, when they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah. And Jonathan had a question about no, not Jonathan. Work is stupid. Work is stupid. Okay. Yeah, but make it fun, Jonathan. Thank you, Jonathan, for tuning in, and stick around as long as you don't get fired. So, Tim, are you considering a 30-centimeter version of Yongary?
So the short answer is yes. The long answer is it's complicated. So we always want to do a big one, just especially since there isn't a 30-centimeter Yongary. The issue is, as I spoke of earlier, when we're talking about the Korean Film Authority, we have to go through them, and then they speak to the licensor. So what we had to do for the 6-inch one we're going to be doing is we have to write a check up front for it so that they can process it and send it to the licensor, and that's just covering the first sample of the the first production run of the 6-inch articulated ones. So then if that goes well, then we go back to them and then say, hey, this went great, let's do it again with a big one, right? And I'm sure if it'll work out, right? But everything always is dependent on the last release being successful. So that's kind of how I would phrase it.
Yeah, so I'll say it in plain English for you out there. Support Titanic Creations by purchasing the Yongary, telling everyone to pre-order it when it's available here soon in March, correct?
Yep.
Dope wants a 30-centimeter Yongary, so he's already on board. Oh, I remember my brother is a big fan of Q, the winged serpent, or the other Wami. I don't know that monster. So someone's going to have to educate me on that one. I know Q.
I mean, I can speak on the Wagami because I had seen this pop up before. It's another Korean kaiju film. It's very, very low budget, and I think it's SRS Cinema just released the film on Blu-ray recently.
Okay. I will have to look that up. And it's got that title, or did they retitle it something else?
It's still titled that. It's an interesting film.
Oh, okay. Interesting. And I think you can find Q out there. It's probably on one of those streaming sites, but yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, I guess, have you considered that one? I don't even know who would have the rights for that one, right?
I mean, I think the best way to put it is we consider every single option when doing this, is because half of the time, me and Dope were communicating and constantly about it. We were trying, we still want to get GAPPA. That's out there. We still want what is it? Gila from the Monster X from Outer Space film is another one we really want to do. And a lot of time it's just what happened, which ones happen first, right? So the reason Yongary is coming out this year is because the people from Yongary, actually worked with us and said they wanted to do it. So as my goal is, hopefully other licensors see how successful these figures are, and they're like, okay, yeah, that's a good bet for my IP.
And you're definitely carving in the niche that, it's like everyone might want to get a Godzilla license or a Toho license, a Daiei, Gamera and all its peripheral monster license. But some of these don't get to see the light of day in a figure, or very few times. And that's what I appreciate about Titanic Creations, UMAC and Dope and Matt, and now Nick Shev on board with you to be able to do this. Jonathan won't get fired, but to make work fun, fire and explosions would have to be employed. And then Wouldn't be anymore, but he'd have fun. So that's where it comes down to. Some love for Titanic Creations. You guys are really awesome. The sculpts are phenomenal. Great job. Thank you, Lee. Bobby Reynolds, Godzilla Fan Freak, did feeder film, made the show Godzilla look like the Heisei effect. Feeder film.
Yes. I'll just answer that question really quick. Yes, it did.
Okay. All right. Looked like the Heisei effect. And Q, Wong Magui. I thought it was Mogwai, like at the end there, Gremlins. So, and then there's Gilala. That's the one that you were mentioning. The X from Outer Space, right?
Yes.
Yeah. There's so many obscure ones that do not get to see the light of day, or as far as a figure, or it's like they've just had these bootlegs, knockoffs made out there. And what's really cool is to see something that is not just licensed, but has the love and care into making it have that film accurate look that Dope brings to the table. And that's what I really do appreciate that. I guess the King Kong 32 book is public domain. So it's like one of those easy grabs, I guess, and say, this is the King Kong from the book.
I think the bigger issue is there are so many King Kongs now, right?
True.
Like probably 10 years ago. I mean, NECA made one. I think Mezco has their own King Kong.
Yeah.
I mean, then there's the SH1 starts King Kongs. I mean, there's
King Kong. King Kong is weird when it comes to the licensing. I've heard that King Kong is just a licensing nightmare because so many people have wanted the Toho Kongs from King Kong Escapes, King Kong versus Godzilla, and this and that, and it's just like I just hear it's a licensing mess the way that all that is thrown together. That's why we don't really see too much of the Toho Kongs being made and stuff like that because it sounds like a nightmare from what I hear.
Yeah. And it's like, just call him Kong, and then you're just free and clear of any of that, right? So, a lot of these things that people don't realize what goes into it is not an easy job. And Mac has done the legwork and getting out there and making those connections. And that is what's great about what Titanic Creations is doing here. I'm sure there was a McFarlane Toys King Kong, because I mean, between Playmates with Kong, like you said, NECA, I think they even had like 3 different variants of Kong that they had. Just insane amount. So I've been dominating the conversations. Everett, any final thoughts before we kind of close up here and do our final shout outs?
If there was just one other throw out that I wanted to throw Mac's way, and if it's on the table already somewhere, that's great. But one of my personal favorites, and I might get a lot of flack for this, that I like a little bit more than the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. I am a big fan of Behemoth, the giant behemoth. And what would be really cool with that figure would be if Titanic Creations did their first glowy figure, because Behemoth did the whole radiation. You could just make a whole glow in the dark Behemoth figure, and I think that would be awesome. I would not be opposed to that.
Right, because if we did Gorgo, Behemoth, and then the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, that would be all of Laurie's 3 Kaiju films, which would be a really cool thing, I think, to be able to do. And I think it's something we want to do. I mean, the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, if we could get that one, I think would be an absolutely, massive release just because.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I forget who it was on someone did a custom one that's been very popular on Instagram recently. So,
and then you have the one like Star Ace, I think, right? Was the other
which
one?
Is a subsidiary of X Plus that just their United States, and those are great. But I think it's hard. I think for people to want to get excited about a statue of a lot of the these they were stop motion puppets.
No.
Right. And I think if you can have an articulated one of that, it really, comes together as like a full, brand. Like it just makes it feel real.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Okay. Before we do our final shout outs here, and want to make sure Thursday, he's throwing some love Dope Pope's way. Gap is divine, and Dope Pope appreciates that. The artist and the fan. Matt Frank is in the house.
Woo!
Good to have you here. Dope, so I'm throwing some love Matt's way. All right, so we've got you guys should have just been in on the stream, guys, if you were here. So next time we have Mac on, help him out here, give him some backup here, and be on the stream. So make all three with connecting displays. Yeah, I mean anything's on the table, like you said, Mac, and it's just awesome what you're doing. I think the best thing for people to do is just to keep in touch with you, support what you have. You also have the Soul War series that you've got, so that's something that if you weren't into maybe figures, but like you're into your graphic novel, and of course later on here soon the Gorgo comic that you have coming out. That's other ways that you can support Mac and all he does, and it doesn't cost as much as a figure. But of course, I think that might translate into you wanting a figure, and so yeah, get in touch with him at TitanicCreations.com. I do have a banner bring up so everyone can check out the site. Anywhere else that you want to make sure, Mac, you shout out, tell people where to find you out there on your social outlets, and anyone else that has been part of your team that you'd like to throw some thanks to.
So first of all, just follow us at Titanic Creations. That's where we are everywhere, except it's 1C, not 2.
My fault.
The Titanic Creation. No, the website's right. Website is 2 C's.
Okay.
The social media is 1C. If you go to the one with 2 C's, it's a baking place. Very different. Not the same thing at all. But yeah, so follow us there on X, Twitter, whatever you call it, Instagram, and then also on Facebook. Also follow Matt Frank. He's going to be doing amazing stuff for us here real soon. I think we were talking. He's going to do an alternate cover for the Gorgo comic book, which is going to look fantastic. And he's already told us that he wants to help on the box art for Yongary, and then hopefully in the future on Pulgasari. And then along with that, always follow Dope Pope. He's Dope Pope on Instagram and on Twitter. He does amazing sculpts and really just, I mean, a lot of the baseline of what we do is based upon how great of a sculptor Dope Pope is. I've told the story before. Really, when I was 18, I met him at G-Fest. I talked to him when we started. He worked on our original Titanicus sculpt, and really just our relationship blossomed from there. And I think it's been really exciting to, be able to work with him, and I hopefully, let more people see how great his sculpts are and how they look in person.
Absolutely. And throw in Matt some love here. I've seen Mac from a distance for a long while. It's been really a pleasure working with them and the Titanic crew. So excited to do more work. Thank you so much, Matt, working with Mac. And Tim, also, Mac, thanks for opening the door. These less known kaiju, been ordering all of them from Titanic Creations. And Mac, thanks you very much. And I could see all the blood and sweat into the product. And yeah, it is definitely, like I said, a labor of love. And yes, you're very much appreciated. So check out Titanic Creations, follow them on all the social outlets. And my wonderful co-host, Godzilla Fan Freaks, Everett, tell us where we can find you.
Of course, you can find me on YouTube under Godzilla Fan Freaks. I also have the Facebook page for Godzilla Fan Freaks and Instagram. So make sure you like, follow, subscribe, like Nick always says, all those great things. Atomic Blast those like buttons and everything for us, and it just helps us out a lot. And if there's ever any news or anything from Titanic Creations or anything, you can guarantee I'll make a video about it just to try to help push the message out there and everything. So, yeah.
And Everett, do you have a live stream coming up here soon?
I'll try to do another Kaiju Chill O'Clock next week. It's been kind of shoddy lately.
Oh, good. I just wanted to see if you wanted to tell everyone tune in soon.
Yeah. I do my Kaiju Chill O'Clock streams. I used to do them once a week, but then, things got complicated and just haven't had the best time schedule for things. But be on the lookout for my Kaiju Chill O'Clock streams if you're interested. Hit that notification bell.
That's right. And yeah, definitely subscribe to his channel and hit that notification bell so you can see all the great things coming from Godzilla Fan Freaks. So thank you so much, both of you gentlemen, for being on the Monster Report Live. And like every episode, Monster Report's the show highlighting those entertaining creatures of film history. Please like, subscribe if you've liked what you've seen. If you haven't liked what you saw, well, I appreciate you watching anyways, but you probably left already. So, but definitely support all that kaiju content creators that I try to support through this channel. They've supported me in their way, but you're supporting me just by hitting the subscribe button, getting close to that 100,000 subscribers. It's a goal of mine. And then after that, I don't know, 200,000. I don't know. So a million. But yeah, once that YouTube, it's going to be that YouTube banner or plaque or whatever they send you is going to be back there. So it's because of you guys. It's because of you all out there, the fans, that this is all possible, that we can have this Monster Report Live and all that we do here at the Monster Report. So Everett and Mac, thank you so much. Gentlemen, stick around after the stream in the green room and we will have our proper goodbyes. And for everyone out there, we will catch you on another episode of the Monster Report Live. Have a good evening.